Tonight, it's a huge sigh of relief in Zamfara state as 75 abducted students of Government Day Secondary School regained freedom after 12 days in captivity. Overnight rainfall wreaks havoc in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, as flash flood ransacks parts of the city, killing 3 people in the process. Court of Appeal marks 2021 legal year. Attorney General of the Federation demands expeditious delivery of justice. And United Nations mobilizes $600 million to solve Afghan humanitarian crisis. Plus international news from our London studio.
On business news tonight, Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries lowers global oil demand forecast for the 4th quarter of 2021.
On sports news tonight, participating teams arrive in Lagos for Maiden Aisha Buhari Cup.
From Abuja, manhunt begins after at least 240 inmates make a jailbreak in the Kaba Correctional Center in Kogi State after gunmen invaded the facility. Federal government calls for Interpol for support to arrest the fleeing inmates.
We begin with some cheery news from Zamfara State, where the remaining 73 students of Government Day Secondary School, Kaya, have been set free by their abductors. The students regained their freedom after 13 days in captivity. They were received on Sunday night by Governor Bello Matawale at the Government House in Gusau, the state capital.
75 students of the Government Day Secondary School, Kaya, in Zamfara State, finally get their freedom. This perhaps is their first verbal interaction with a sane soul over the last 12 days. They find expression as they show joy over their freedom from their abductors, who invaded their school, whisking off 80 of them and 3 teachers in broad daylight. The state governor, Bello Matawale, who is on hand to receive them, is happy that all return unhurt.
We'll find out the locations where this children was kept. I've been putting a media which mounted to identify where they are, the surveillance area. And yesterday we coordinated the operation for the release of these children.
He alludes the rescue to certain strategic moves by his government, promising to go all out on the bandits.
We'll do all this wisdom, initiative these tactics. And I joined the influence of myself that the government will not relent on this. We must continue, we must fight the criminals, we must bring peace.
Between the last week of August and now, the Zamfara state government has announced a set of measures to tackle the growing activities of bandits, with the latest being the shutdown of telecommunication services in the northwest state. This latest kidnap of students is the 3rd in the history of the state, and the governor is promising to ensure it is the last.
Still on security, the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Farouk Yahya, is insisting that he will not take or accept excuses from commanders as they lead troops in tackling security challenges across the country. The Army Chief gave the warning at the opening of the combined 2nd and 3rd quarter Chief of Army Staff Conference in Abuja. He directed formation commanders and principal staff officers to ensure the tempo of all their operations across the country is sustained and maintained.
I have directed that serious attention be given to sustaining and improving the tempo in all ongoing Nigerian Army operations across the country. I have also directed for the conduct of special operations, especially in North Central and Northwest region, to address deteriorating security infractions in the regions. Commanders must therefore glean from my command philosophy to ensure that operational and administrative proficiencies of Nigerian Army units and formations are sustained and improved upon. Commanders must seize initiative. Commanders must have initiative. Commanders must take initiative. They must take decisive action to defeat the threats in their respective areas of responsibility. I will not take or accept excuses. Gentlemen, we are to note, please, that failure is failure, irrespective of the circumstances. I am aware of logistic constraints affecting operations across the country, and I am glad to inform you that efforts are in progress to provide us with combat enablers that would enhance and boost our operations. Concerted efforts are being made to eliminate the threat of improvised explosive devices, which has been a major impediment to troops and our operations in Operation Hatin Kai.
And now to the Judiciary, where the Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, is asking justices of the Court of Appeal to contribute positively to the judiciary system by concluding speedily cases before them at the level of the Appeal Court. He was speaking today at the special session to mark the 2021 legal year of the Court of Appeal. He reminds the Appeal Court justices that a lot is expected of them in the delivery of credible judgment that will foster and promote public confidence.
Justices of the Appeal Court, led by the President, arrive at the ceremonial court for the maiden edition of the 2021-2022 legal year celebration in Abuja. In attendance are members of the bar and bench from across the country, including some members of the Federal Executive Council. The outgoing legal year was a busy one for the Court of Appeal, with over 5,000 appeals and 9,000 motions filed across the divisions of the court. While the bench called for a better welfare package, the bar insists that the legal profession should not be in the news for the wrong reasons.
The last time salaries of judicial officers were reviewed in Nigeria was via the certain political, public and judicial office holders' salaries and allowances Amendment Act of 2008, which came into force on February 1, 2007.
In recent times, we have been the lead in the news for reasons of the conduct of some of our members. My only advice is that the bar and the bench must uphold the integrity, the honor, and the character that stands us out in this political dispensation.
The sanctity and credibility of the judiciary is considered sacrosanct, and members of the Federal Executive Council want the court to ensure that it remains so.
Consistency and universality of judgment and rulings in the face of judicial precedent is an exceptional value of our judicial system that we must at all times strive to uphold.
As the appellate court begins its new legal year, the focal point for most of these justices is for the judiciary to uphold the tenets of the profession, as it's considered the last hope of the common man.
Away from the judiciary, nature took its toll today following an overnight downpour in Abuja, resulting to massive flooding that led to the death of 3 people in the FCT. The rains, which came with strong winds, destroyed some fence lines, property, including vehicles, some of them washed into drainages.
Residents of Trademore Estate, one of the residential estates on the airport road in the nation's capital, trying to salvage what is left of their belongings after flood caused havoc in the area. fallen fences, cars washed away, some of the scenes that trailed the Sunday night heavy downpour. The waters have receded, but the impact is huge. Government officials confirm 3 people dead.
We've been on the search since that yesterday, and this morning we have been able to discover 3 bodies.
For some of the survivors, it was a narrow escape.
This is my very house. I was inside. In fact, when this thing happened, I have to climb the roof. I was inside the roof all through till it finished.
The flood entered my car and I have to open the door to rescue myself. I just have to rescue myself because the car wasn't important. It's my life that was important.
Some residents blame government authorities for the problem, but officials insist the occupants built on waterways.
Development control have not done their job. That's why we're having this problem. It's not about somebody building somewhere. You have to take your design to development control for approval. And if you approve this kind of thing and then you are having people having to die every year because of your incompetence, then there's a problem here.
The water must find its level. So if you block it, it must surely find a way of reacting. And this is what is happening. The flood is reacting.
Similar flooding occurred last year in this estate, killing 1 person. The government marked some buildings for demolition, but nothing was done owing to litigation. Going forward, government officials say drastic measures must be taken, but this may also be resisted by residents.
We cannot continue this way. I think in all manners we are going to take it to the highest authority. Certain houses will just have to give way for the waterway to have its free path.
Nobody is coming here to demolish anybody's property. We will not allow that. What we want is for government to invest in drainage system and get this flood moving all the time. A whole of London is on top of water, for crying out loud.
The Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency had earlier predicted that there will be flooding this year in 28 states and the Federal Capital Territory, a warning that should be heeded by action to prevent loss of lives and property.
Meanwhile, still in the capital city, Abuja, a big event on climate change took place earlier in the day, and Africa was promised a huge financial support by the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO. The Director General of the organization, Mrs. Audrey Azola, gave the assurances at the 33rd session of the Man and the Biosphere program.
It's the first time the 33rd meeting of Man and the Biosphere is holding in Africa, weeks after the World Congress of the International Union for Conservation of Nature reveals that there is a global diversity crisis. From the treetops to the ocean depths, from vertebrates to invertebrates, no species is spared. This worrisome trend is what the UNESCO hopes to address.
With our Biopath project, we seek to restore ecosystems but also social ties by building on the combined forces of culture, of heritage and of science.
Government officials also express worry over the attendant effects of the environment on human activities and the socio-economic development of the country. With series of interventions such as tree planting, creation of national parks and laws targeted at protecting the ecosystem, Nigeria may just be coming out of the harmful effect of the biosphere on its people.
I made a pledge at the 74th session of the United Nations General Assembly that Nigeria will plant 25 million trees nationwide. This pledge has seen Nigeria raising and planting close to 80% of the total number across the country.
The United Nations Resident Coordinator commends the government for its intervention to save the planet while pledging their support.
The UN system is implementing several activities geared towards protecting the ecosystem and biodiversity of our beautiful country, Nigeria, as well as addressing the consequences orchestrated by COVID-19 and climate change, amongst others.
The Man and the Biosphere program seeks to reconcile humans and nature to demonstrate that it is possible to use biodiversity sustainably while fostering its conservation. It is expected that the level of commitments reached here will help protect the environment going forward.
Thank you, President.
awarded a fellowship of UNESCO in the 60s.
And just after the 33rd Man Biosphere session, the Director General of UNESCO and her team were at the presidential villa to meet with President Muhammadu Buhari.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
In part two, after the break, Northeast Development Commission set to build 500 housing units for IDPs as well as 18 mega schools across the regions affected by Boko Haram insurgency. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. It's a huge sigh of relief in Zamfara State as 75 abducted students of Government Day Secondary School regained freedom after 12 days in captivity. Overnight rainfall wreaks havoc in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, as flash flood ransacks part of the city, killing 3 people in the process. Court of Appeal marks 2021 legal year. Attorney General of the Federation demands expeditious delivery of justice. And United Nations mobilizes $600 million to solve Afghan humanitarian crisis. The Northeast Development Commission has begun constructing 500 housing units for internally displaced persons, as well as 18 mega schools across states in the region affected by Boko Haram insurgency. This is according to the Governor of Yobe State, Mai Mala Bonny, and the Managing Director of the Northeast Development Commission, Mohammed Al-Khali, as part of efforts towards the rehabilitation, reintegration and reconstruction of the region. They were speaking during the foundation-laying ceremony in Damaturu, the Yobe State capital.
Yobe is the second most affected state by Boko Haram insurgency after Borno, the epicenter of the over 12-year armed conflict. Many have returned to their ancestral homes, but facing challenges ranging from food, shelter, and educational stagnation. This situation prompted the Northeast Development Commission to undertake the construction of 500 houses for the internally displaced persons in Damaturu, the state capital, and other major cities.
The Commission had earlier requested for and had received approval from the Yobe State government on allocation of plots of land for these houses as follows. Damaturu, we have 250 houses, Bonny 50 houses, Gaidam 50 houses, Potscom 50 houses, Gashua 50 houses, Nguru 50 houses.
The Commission also flagged off the construction of mega schools in Gashua to improve schools enrollment and reduce out-of-school children. According to the President of the Senate, it is a deliberate policy to meet the yearnings of the IDPs.
We have done it, in such a way that every senatorial district in the Northeast is going to have a mega school.
Other interventions include food and non-food items, training of 350 graduates on information and communications technology, and distribution of starter packs, as well as donation of molecular laboratory for COVID-19 testing and other infectious diseases. While appreciating the Commission for the gesture, the Yobe State government revealed it is undertaking construction of 2,350 houses to vulnerable persons in order to reduce the housing deficit in the state.
As you are aware, Yobe State government is committed to meeting the shelter needs of the citizenry as part of its effort of uplifting general welfare of the people. The ongoing construction of 2,350 housing units comprising 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom urban and 2-bedroom rural and all semi-detached with provisions of roads and fencing will cost 16 billion. When completed, will be distributed to the people on owner-occupier scheme basis.
The benefiting communities are optimistic the intervention will impact positively on their lives.
The contribution made by the Northeast Development Commission with collaboration with the Yobe State government to the benefit of the IDPs in terms of shelter, food and non-food items, and this molecular laboratory which have been just commissioned will contribute in a lot way in sustaining the life cycles of our IDPs and the Yobians in general.
Although the speedy completion of the projects and fair distribution of the food and non-food items are very key, the people are optimistic that the activities of insurgents will soon be confined to history.
And away from the northeast, the governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, is blaming the delay in the completion of the 120 billion naira Bonny border road on failure of the federal government to pay its share of the 60 billion naira counterpart funding for the project. According to the governor, who spoke at a ceremony for the former NLNG managing director, Mr. Tony Atta, in Port Harcourt over the weekend, every fund so far spent on the Bonny border road had been provided by the NLNG, adding that since the 60 billion naira counterpart fund for the 38-kilometer road will be paid from the Federation account, it will be wrong for the federal government to continue to claim glory for the project with the Nigeria Liquefied Natural Gas NLNG. In his words, the Bonny border road is not funded between the federal government and NLNG. I don't agree. With due respect, it is funded between NLNG or the states of the Federation and the federal government. Governor Wike adds that Mr. Atta will be remembered for overseeing the commencement and completion of NLNG corporate headquarters building in Port Harcourt and for ensuring that all fabrication works for the company's $10 billion Train 7 were done in Rivers State. The governor also explains that by ensuring the speedy completion of the NLNG headquarters, Mr. Atta had proved that the claim of insecurity in the Niger Delta by international oil companies is indefensible. Nigeria is expecting a total of 52 million doses of vaccines for COVID-19 by the second quarter of 2022. That's according to the Secretary of the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa, who is also chairman of the Presidential Steering Committee. He disclosed this while speaking at the national briefing of the committee in Abuja.
It's been almost 6 weeks since members of the Presidential Steering Committee stepped out for this national briefing on COVID-19, and this time the exercise is crucial as students prepare to resume a new academic year amidst the third wave. Nigeria has recorded almost 200,000 cases of the virus from the 2.9 million samples collected so far. The NCDC is prepared to carry out tests for schools willing to make themselves available.
In addition to the vaccines, we also now have rapid antigen tests that we can test the whole school community in a single day and give every student the result in 15 minutes. And we're ready to work with any school owner in any school in Nigeria.
According to the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, over 2.6 million Nigerians have been fully vaccinated, whereas the nation needs to vaccinate over 111 million people to achieve herd immunity. The committee is expecting 52 million doses of vaccine by the second quarter of 2022.
There will be enough vaccines to go around soon. By the second quarter of 2022, we would have received about 52 million doses of the vaccines, sufficient enough for our people to be vaccinated.
One sour area is the dispute between Nigeria and the United Arab Emirates over the travel protocols between both countries. The committee is now exploring other options to resolve the impasse.
We've gone through Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Now we're being mandated by the task force jointly with the Foreign Affairs to resolve this impasse. It will be resolved. We're very sure it will be resolved, but it should be resolved in a fair manner to our team and passengers.
The committee is also hoping that the striking resident doctors can call a truce in view of the latest promise by the president to clear all outstanding debts.
When the news at 10 returns, 240 inmates escaped from the Kaba Correctional Center. Minister of Internal Affairs seeks help from Interpol for the rearrest of the criminals. Please stay with us. And for more stories, let's go over to Abuja studios where Mark Ogun Yusuf is standing by with more. Hello, Mark.
Hello, Millicent. It's good to see you. Well, we start off a few hours from the Federal Capital Territory where it was bedlam in Kaba, Kogi State, as gunmen attacked and forcefully freed 240 inmates at the Medium Security Custodial Center in that city. The incident took place in the late hours of Sunday. The Controller General of the Nigeria Correctional Service, Haliru Nababa, has ordered a recapture procedure to be activated immediately and detailed investigation carried out, even as he personally leads a team to assess the situation. Also, the Minister of Interior, Rauf Aregbesola, is seeking the support of the Interpol for the rearrest of the fleeing inmates.
Shattered windows and ceilings are some of the worrisome images left after the attack by gunmen at the Kaba Correctional Center in Kogi State, north-central Nigeria. Security operatives and visitors at the prison facility are in shock over the level of destruction carried out by the gunmen, who freed no fewer than 240 of the 294 inmates at the facility. Eyewitness account says the gunmen used explosives to destroy the perimeter fence of the facility, an information the Obaro of Kaba corroborates.
Because they declared war on us yesterday, so it was beyond the capacity and capabilities of local hunters.
The prison leadership is still trying to figure out how the gunmen beat their internal security and freed 240 inmates, but investigation is still ongoing.
Let us make investigation, adequate investigation, then we'll communicate later. I have to thank the military authorities and as well as commiserate the Nigerian Army as well as the families of the deceased.
Meanwhile, the Minister of Interior, Rauf Aregbesola, says a special task force has been set up to recapture the inmates. The minister explains that the International Criminal Police Organization, Interpol, has been alerted to look out for any of the inmates who may attempt to flee the country. To the fleeing inmates, the minister warns that escaping from lawful custody is a serious criminal offense, emphasizing that law enforcement agencies and citizens are lawfully empowered to use all necessary means to rearrest and bring them to justice.
In other news, the European Union delegation to Nigeria and ECOWAS have inaugurated a 25-member youth sounding board, a body of young Nigerians who will help in shaping and implementing EU programs and strategies in the country for more inclusiveness. At the event in Abuja, the charge d'affaires at the EU delegation to Nigeria and ECOWAS, Mr. Alexander Gomez, says the members of the EU YSB will have an unpaid mandate of 2 years, noting that the board serves as a bridge between young Nigerians and the EU delegation. Mr. Gomez adds that the Youth Sounding Board will allow young people to have an influence on the policy and programs of the EU in Nigeria, thereby contributing to making the body's action more participatory, relevant and effective for the large young population in Nigeria. And as the National Assembly preps for resumption this week, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, says the National Assembly is not a rubber stamp of the executive simply because of the harmonious relationship between the two arms of government or because the Parliament approved the borrowing plans of the government. Honorable Gbajabiamila is explaining the rationale behind the approvals of the loans by the Buhari government. The Speaker, in an exclusive interview with our political correspondent, Seun Okinbaloye, believes the actions of the federal government is for the good of Nigerians.
At the end of the day, you ask yourself, with the little that we have, can we move forward as a nation? We don't have to borrow. We don't have to borrow. We can just sit down and pay salaries. Hopefully, there will be enough income to at least even pay the salaries. I'm not even sure. But so we have a choice. You either borrow and develop your economy and develop your country, develop the infrastructure. Or you sit down, arms akimbo, and say, well, the situation is bad, we're not going to borrow, we don't want to go into debt. You can see it's visible to the naked eyes. You can see the transformation in terms of infrastructure. You can see the trains. You can see that. Now, some people may not realize the impact of transport. Transport perhaps probably the most significant aspect of the country's economy. You have a network of roads like never before. You have a network of rails like never before, and so on and so forth. That's where the money goes to. Do you have the capacity to pay back? Yes, you have the capacity to pay back, but you're cutting it. It's very thin right now, and now, well, that's where I agree with you that we need to check it a little bit. But the criticism should not be that no, don't borrow, and the criticism is not that you're a rubber stamp because you are approving.
For the full version of that exclusive interview with the speaker, do watch our political program, Political Paradigm, our special political program tomorrow, Tuesday the 14th of September at 10 a.m. and a repeat of it at 11 p.m. only on Channels Television. Well, that's all we have for you from Abuja. We now hand over to Anne, who's standing by with business news.
Banking so easy, simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thank you, Malpe. Hello and welcome to Business News. Beginning with the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, lowering its global oil demand for the last quarter of this year due to the rising cases of COVID-19 Delta variant. According to the OPEC monthly report, oil demand is expected to average 99.7 million barrels per day, and that's down 110,000 barrels per day from last month's forecast. At the same time, the growth forecast for 2022 has been adjusted to 4.15 million barrels per day, coming from 4.2 million barrels per day. But the oil bloc has now kept demand growth forecast for this year unchanged at 5.96 million barrels per day, despite the downward revision to the fourth quarter. The federal government has approved new aviation safety threshold charges for ground handling companies for the first time since 1986. According to a statement by the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, handlers for international carriers will pay between $1,500 and $5,000 for passenger and cargo flights, while domestic operators are to pay between 25,000 and 70,000 naira, depending on the size of the aircraft. NCAA says that the new rates reflect market realities, and it's in line with applicable charges within the economic reality and economic community of West African states, ECOWAS. The new charges are expected to start from October the 1st for international carriers and January the 1st, 2022 for domestic operators. And let's head to the local stock market, where it closed a negative today in the trading session. The all-share index depreciated further by 0.02%. Will Ibong tells us more.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. It's the first trading day of the week at the NGX, and equities are not able to sustain the slightly positive sentiment observed at intraday, reversing gains and still making the bear dominant at the close of today's session. The market value went down again by about 3 billion naira as the all-share index closed lower at 0.02%. Let's zoom in at the activity chart, where 201.1 million units of shares, which is a higher volume when compared to Friday's close, exchanged hands in over 3,300 deals. We had a slightly mixed performance at the sectoral chart. Honeywell Flour Mill was the largest contributor to the consumer goods index, lifting the sector up by 0.2%, while O&O pulled back the oil and gas sector. Its share price declined by more than 4%. Morrison's Industries led the gainers counter, up by 9.38% to close at 2 naira 10 kobo, followed by Linkage Assurance and Sovereign Trust Insurance PLC. Over to the losers counter, where Score Nigeria, down by 10%, led the laggards. You might say it's a mildly negative start for the third trading week. Let's hope that some bargain hunters will come to save the day in Tuesday's session. And that's the stock market report for Monday. I'm Willie Bung. It's back to you.
Thank you, Will. We'll see how the rest of the week goes. It's mostly positive performance for other major global markets. In the U.S., for example, the Dow Jones Industrial Average gained today as the index rebounded from a 5-day losing streak. But let's take a look at the closing numbers for today. And that's Business News Tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. Millicent will be back with the rest of the news at 10.
Thank you, Anne. Still ahead on the news at 10, United Nations mobilizes $600 million to solve Afghanistan humanitarian crisis. There's more international news from around the world in 5. Stay with us. And some international news. The bill hearing for convicted leader of the movement for the emancipation of the Niger Delta, Henry Oka, opened today at the Johannesburg High Court. Mr. Oka approached the court with 3 separate applications, one for bail, another for leave to appeal his trial and conviction, and a third for reservation on the question of law. Justice Mabitsela, who is hearing the case, accepted to begin with the bail application. The state opposed the application, stating that the court doesn't have jurisdiction to entertain the applications, while Henry Oka, who is representing himself, took to the stand to read the affidavit on the background of his case against the state. He pleaded that he be granted bail ahead of pursuing his application for leave to appeal his conviction. He cited the conditions of his incarceration, his battle with a skin condition, and lack of access to appropriate Medicare. Also, his family struggling without him as some of the considerations for him to be granted bail. And the United Nations is calling for international aid as much as $606 million for Afghanistan, with the Secretary General Antonio Guterres warning that the country faces a major humanitarian crisis. It described the crisis as a looming catastrophe, saying the people of Afghanistan are in desperate need of a lifeline. Here's Simon Pusey with more in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The United Nations is seeking to raise more than $600 million in aid for Afghanistan, warning the country is facing a major humanitarian crisis. The organization's human rights chief also criticized the Taliban's record since seizing power in the country, saying stated commitments did not match realities on the ground, such as the status of women.
Importantly, and in contradiction to assurances that the Taliban would uphold women's rights over the past few weeks, women have instead been progressively excluded from the public sphere. In many areas, they are prohibited from appearing in public spaces without a male chaperone. In numerous professional sectors, women face increasing restrictions. Taliban representatives have limited girls' access to education, with girls over 12 prohibited from attending schools in several locations.
North Korean state media have said they have tested a new long-range cruise missile capable of hitting much of Japan. The state TV channel said the weekend tests saw missiles traveling up to 1,500 kilometers. It suggests North Korea is still capable of developing weapons despite food shortages and an economic crisis. A picture in the North Korean Rodong Sinmun newspaper showed a missile being fired from a launch vehicle, while another could be seen in horizontal flight. The US military said the latest tests posed threats to the international community, and neighboring Japan said it had significant concerns. Peruvian officials are expected to decide later on what to do with the body of Abimael Guzman, the founder of the Shining Path rebel group, who died in prison on Saturday. Almost 70,000 people died or disappeared in the conflict between the Maoist group and the Peruvian state. There are fears that if he were to be buried, his gravesite could become a rallying point for extremists. Peru's justice minister said he would like to see the body cremated. Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett has met Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi in the Red Sea resort of Sharm el-Sheikh. It is the first official trip to Egypt by an Israeli premier for a decade. The Egyptian presidency said the two leaders would discuss bilateral and regional issues and ways to revive the Israeli-Palestinian peace process. Mr. Bennett, who succeeded Benjamin Netanyahu in June, received an invitation to visit Egypt last month. Emergency services continue to battle flames as wildfires have blazed in Spain for a sixth consecutive day. Wildfires burning in the hills could be seen from miles away near the town of Pujera, where many residents have been evacuated by emergency services. Emergency crews also moved people from several other towns and villages on Friday. Pope Francis has begun a 4-day visit to Slovakia, the first papal visit to the country in 18 years. He met with Slovak bishops, priests and seminarians at the St. Martin Cathedral in Bratislava during the first full day of his visit to the Central European country. The 84-year-old Francis is making his first trip since undergoing intestinal surgery in July and has appeared to be in good form.
La Chiesa non è una fortezza.
He told the Slovak clergy that the Catholic Church was not a self-sufficient stronghold, but a community that seeks to draw people to Christ. US pop star Britney Spears has announced her engagement to her long-term boyfriend Sam Asghari. The singer posted a video of the couple showing off the ring on Instagram, while Mr. Asghari, an actor and fitness trainer, posted a separate photo of the ring and the couple kissing. The couple met on the set of a music video in 2016. And finally, it was an animal, not a player, that stole the show at a cricket match in Ireland over the weekend.
Have to look to take two. They're going to have to take a chance now. Oh, dog. Oh, the dog is the ball. Oh, here we go. Now that
is... The unlikely pitch invader, a Cocker Spaniel named Dazzle, caused a few moments of chaos as he ran away with the ball.
Oh, there we go. I think we'll retrieve the ball. It may need a clean.
The inaugural Women's All-Ireland T20 Cup did eventually restart when one of the batsmen was able to retrieve the ball from the dog's mouth. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. All is now set for the maiden edition of the Aisha Buhari Invitational Women's Football Tournament, with the arrival of 4 of the participating teams in the country, namely Morocco, Ghana, Mali and Cameroon. South Africa's Bayana are the only team still being expected. Bayern Munich start their UEFA Champions League campaign with a mouth-watering clash at Barcelona on Tuesday at the Camp Nou. Bayern head into Europe confident in their current squad, despite no big signing this summer. Meanwhile, FC Barcelona have made drastic changes to their squad as they prepare to face an opponent that completely outclassed them just over a year ago. Barca now boasts a completely refreshed attacking lineup with new signing Memphis Depay, Luke de Jong, as well as new loan signing Yusuf Demir. And China has handed over to Cambodia a $150 million stadium in Phnom Penh. The arena is intended as the main venue when Cambodia hosts the Southeast Asian Games in 2023. And that's a wrap on sports news. It's back to you, Millicent.
Thank you, Tunde. And the main news again. It was a huge sigh of relief in Zamfara state today as 75 abducted students of Government Day Secondary School regained freedom after 12 days in captivity. Also today, flash floods ransacked part of the FCT and killed 3 people in the process. And the federal government has called on Interpol for support following manhunt, which has begun for at least 240 inmates that escaped from Kaba Correctional Facility. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Walker. Have a good night and stay safe.